Okay, welcome to the video for day 4. Today we're going to talk about functions. Functions are a relationship between a set of inputs, which are your x values, and a set of outputs, your y values, in which every input has one unique output. So what that means is none of our input values will repeat when we look at the data points. The domain is the set of all of the input values or your x values. The range is the set of all of your output values, your y values. So when we talk about function notation, so again, those functions mean for every x value in the domain that you substitute into an equation, there is a y value in the range that is the output. So since the y value depends on the x value, the y value can be represented by your f of x. So how we read or say that when we see the f with the parentheses and then the x is f of x. So let's look at how this compares to using x's and y values, which is something that you should have done in the past. So we have y equals 2x plus 3. Find y when our x value equals 4. So since we know what x is, what I can do is everywhere I see an x in my equation, I can sub in the 4 in place of that x. So in the next step, you can see, and remember I always use parentheses around when I sub in, so you can see where that x used to be, there is now a 4. Now it's something we can put into our calculator exactly the way we see it. So you could write the 2 parentheses 4, close parentheses, plus 3, hit enter, and you'll get y equals 11. So that's our output. Now we're going to look at this same situation, only writing it with function notation. So we can see here I rewrote the f of x equals 2x plus 3. Then I subbed in the 4 in place of the x. So everywhere I see an x, I will now put in the 4, and then we would do the same thing, put that in our calculator, and we get the same output of an 11. So function notation just looks a little different, but it works exactly the same way. The f of x is a fancy way of writing y equals. And then we can see that in place of the x, there's a 4. So in my equation, in place of the x, we will substitute in the 4. And then it's the same answer as we got in the previous. So this is function notation. So this first one, if y equals 2x plus 3, find y when x equals 3. So here you can see it's the same equation, but what we're doing is we're subbing in a different x value. So I'm going to replace the y. I'm going to leave that as y equals, but you could write it with the f of x if you wanted to. That's function notation. Since it didn't make me, I'm just going to rewrite y equals, but in place of the x, I'm going to sub in a 3. So you can see here what I did was I left the y equals and I plugged in the 3 for the x value. So I just rewrote it as 2 times the 3 plus 3. Remember, use parentheses whenever you're subbing in value. Then we can put this in our calculator and we'll get out the answer, which is a y value of a 9. So when the x value is 3, the y value is a 9. So my point there would be 3, 9. In goes an x value of a 3, out comes a y value of a 9. We're going to do the same thing for these up questions, number 2, 3, and 4. So number 2, they again give me here, we're just changing our variables, but they're giving me the b value, which is going in place of the b to get out the answer for g. So in goes the 2 in place of b. So I can rewrite this as where I had my b, I replaced it with a 2. So then I have 4 times 2 minus 7, which you can put in your calculator to get out the answer of a 1. So in went the 2 in place of b, and out came 1 for the g value. What you're going to do is finish 3 and 4, and then for these bottom, rewriting 1 through 4 from above, you're just going to take what we had originally, and now we're going to write it in that function notation. So for this first example, I rewrote, instead of y equals like we had here, I replaced it with the f of x, the function notation. Remember, that's just a fancy way of saying y equals. Everything else is exactly the same, 2x plus 3. Then it's just over here I'm showing that I'm subbing in the 3. and then I'm putting the 3 in place of x in my equation, and that'll give me my output of 9. So f of 3 is a fancy way of saying y equals 9. So it means the same thing, but this is in function notation. So you'll continue doing that for 2, 3, and 4. Okay, that's it for this video. We'll see you tomorrow.